There is something deeply humiliating about waiting. Not the kind of waiting you do in line or in traffic, the other kind, the kind that hollows you out over years, the kind where you wake up every morning with your hands open, palms up, eyes toward the sky, begging existence to finally give you a break. You have been waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to notice you, waiting for the economy to shift, for the stars to align, for the universe to look in your direction and decide that today is the day it chooses you. And while you waited, life moved on without you. Napoleon Hill did not discover the science of achievement by studying people who waited. He studied people who decided, people who looked at the same broken circumstances everyone else had and chose to become undeniable anyway. People who did not ask life for permission, people who walked into the room of their own destiny and took a seat at the head of the table. This is not a conversation about positivity, this is a reckoning. Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that humility means smallness, that patience means passivity, that being good means being quiet and waiting your turn. And that teaching, that quiet, insidious, well-meaning lie has cost you more than you are ready to calculate. Let me speak to the part of you that is exhausted, not tired from working too hard, tired from working hard and still feeling like nothing moves, tired of doing everything right and watching people who do everything wrong somehow advance. Tired of praying with sincerity and waking up to the same walls, the same numbers, the same suffocating sameness of a life that refuses to expand, no matter how much you pour into it. That exhaustion is real. I am not going to tell you it isn't, but I am going to tell you what it means. That exhaustion is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that you have been operating on the wrong frequency, using the wrong method, playing a game by rules that were written specifically to keep you losing. Begging is a frequency, and the universe does not reward it. Think about what begging communicates at its deepest level. It communicates lack. It communicates unworthiness. It communicates a fundamental belief that what you need exists outside of you, and that some external force must be generous enough to hand it down. Every time you approach your own life from a position of pleading, God, please, just one break, just one chance, just a little relief, you are broadcasting to every cell in your body and every frequency in your environment that you do not believe you have the power to create what you need. And your life, with devastating precision, reflects that belief back to you. Hill wrote it without apology. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between constructive and destructive thought impulses. It translates into reality whatever thought pattern dominates the mind. Whatever you impress upon it with feeling and repetition, it builds. Without judgment, without mercy, without exception. You have been impressing upon it a prayer for rescue. And so, rescue is what you keep needing, but never quite receiving. Look at your life right now, with complete honesty. Not the life you perform for others. The one you actually live behind closed doors, in the silence between obligations, in the 3 a.m. moments when the noise stops and the truth gets loud. What does that life tell you about what you believe? Does it tell you that you believe you are powerful? Does it tell you that you believe you are worthy of the extraordinary? Or does it tell you that somewhere deep beneath the hope and the effort and the prayers, there is a voice that has never fully believed you would actually make it? That voice is not your enemy. That voice is a wound inflicted by every failure you misread as a verdict, every rejection you absorbed as a definition, every person who looked at the size of your dream and laughed, and whose laughter you decided to believe over the calling inside your own chest. Hill called this the ghost of fear, and he said it with the gravity of a man who had seen it destroy more potential than poverty ever could. The ghost of fear does not announce itself. It does not walk in wearing a sign. It infiltrates. It whispers in the language of reason. It says, "Be realistic. Be careful. Be patient, wait a little longer. The timing isn't right, you aren't ready yet. And while you listened to that ghost, while you negotiated with it, while you tried to find a compromise between your fear and your fire, the life you were meant to live was being built by someone else. Someone who was no more gifted than you, someone who was no more favored than you, someone who simply refused to let the ghost have the final word. That refusal is available to you right now, not tomorrow, not when the circumstances improve, not when you feel ready, because readiness is a myth invented by people who never shipped anything. Right now, in this moment, with exactly what you have and exactly who you are, you can make the decision that changes the entire trajectory of your existence. Not a decision to try harder, not a decision to be more disciplined starting Monday, a decision at the level of identity, a decision that says the person who begs is dead, and the person who demands has just been born. Results are not granted. They are not handed down by a merciful universe to the most deserving applicant. They are not the reward for the longest suffering or the loudest prayer. Results are demanded through the disciplined, relentless, spiritually violent act of aligning your thought, your belief, your action, and your identity into a single unstoppable force directed at a definite purpose. This is Hill's first and most sacred principle, definiteness of purpose. Not a wish, not a hope, not a dream you visit on weekends and put away before Monday arrives. A definiteness, burning, specific, consuming, that takes over the architecture of your mind and refuses to share space with doubt. The men and women Hill studied did not stumble into their results. They demanded them. They woke up every morning and made an internal declaration that was closer to a command than a prayer. Not God, please give me this, but rather, this is mine, I am moving toward it, and nothing in this universe has the authority to stop me. That is a different vibration entirely. That is the frequency at which mountains move. Napoleon Hill spent 2 decades inside the lives of the most extraordinary achievers this civilization has ever produced. He sat with Andrew Carnegie, the man who built an empire from nothing but iron will and absolute conviction. He studied Thomas Edison, who failed 10,000 times and called each failure a data point on the road to inevitability. He observed Henry Ford, who was told by every expert of his era that his vision was impossible, and who looked at those experts with the quiet calm of a man who had already decided the outcome. And what Hill found, beneath all the strategy and all the tactics and all the specific methods these titans used, was a single, pulsing, non-negotiable truth. Every one of them had made a demand, not a request, a demand. A demand so deeply embedded in their identity that their nervous system had no choice but to organize every thought, every action, every perception around its fulfillment. This is what Hill called the burning desire, and he used the word burning deliberately, because a burning desire does not ask for permission to exist. It does not apologize for its size. It does not negotiate with fear or shrink in the presence of doubt. It consumes, it illuminates, it makes everything that is not aligned with it feel unbearable. When you have a burning desire, comfort becomes your enemy. Mediocrity becomes physically intolerable. The idea of settling begins to feel not just disappointing, but deeply, spiritually wrong, like a violation of something sacred that lives inside you. That is the state Hill was pointing to. That is the state you must cultivate. And here is the cosmic law at the center of everything he taught. The universe is not a vending machine. You do not insert coins of effort and receive results on demand. The universe is a mirror, a perfect, merciless, infinitely accurate mirror that reflects back the dominant vibration of your consciousness with zero distortion and zero favoritism. What you truly believe, not what you say you believe, not what you perform in public, but what your subconscious has accepted as its deepest operating truth. That is what the universe amplifies and returns to you as your lived experience. This is not metaphor. This is mechanism. Hill understood this before the language of quantum physics existed to describe it. He understood that thought is not passive. Thought is creative force. Thought, charged with emotion and held with consistency, does not simply reflect reality. It shapes it. It reaches into the field of infinite possibility and begins to collapse specific outcomes into physical form. The person who thinks in abundance, who feels abundant, who moves through the world with the body language and the decision-making of someone who already has what they are building toward, that person begins to attract the circumstances, the people, the ideas and the opportunities that match that frequency. And the person who thinks in lack, who feels desperate, who approaches every opportunity with the energetic signature of someone who needs it to work because nothing else has, that person repels the very outcomes they are working toward. This is why trying harder from the same broken internal state produces the same broken results. You cannot hustle your way out of a scarcity mindset. You cannot outwork a subconscious that believes you are not worthy of winning. The effort without the internal shift is like pressing the accelerator while the emergency brake is engaged. You burn energy, you create noise, you feel like you are moving. But the car does not go anywhere. Hill was ruthless about this. He said that there are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Read that slowly. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge, which means every ceiling in your life right now is a ceiling you have agreed to. Every wall is a wall you have accepted as permanent. Every door that seems locked is locked only because some part of you decided it was not meant to open for you. And the moment you withdraw that agreement, the moment you look at the ceiling and say, "I did not build you and I do not recognize your authority," everything changes. Not gradually, not eventually. The shift in internal reality precedes the shift in external reality, but it precedes it with the certainty of dawn following darkness. It is law, it is not luck, it is not grace extended to the selected few. It is available to every conscious being who is willing to do the most difficult thing a human being can do. Change what they believe about themselves at the level where belief actually lives. Not the surface level where affirmations are spoken without conviction. Not the intellectual level where you understand a concept but your body hasn't received the message. The cellular level, the level where your nervous system, your posture, your breathing, your unconscious choices, your reaction to opportunity, your tolerance for discomfort, all of it reorganizes around a new and unshakable truth about who you are and what you are capable of creating. That reorganization is what Hill called the transformation of the self. And it begins not with action. It begins with a decision so total, so absolute, so final, that your old identity has no ground left to stand on. The decision that you are no longer a person who begs. You are a person who builds. You are no longer a person who waits for breaks. You are a person who breaks barriers. You are no longer defined by what life has given you. You are defined by what you have decided to demand. Carnegie did not build U.S. Steel by hoping the iron ore would cooperate. Edison did not illuminate the world by asking the darkness politely to step aside. Ford did not put the world on wheels by waiting for the critics to change their minds. They demanded, they aligned. They became so identified with the outcome that failure was simply a temporary condition on the road to the inevitable. And the universe, that perfect and merciless mirror, had no choice but to reflect their conviction back to them as reality. That same universe is looking at you right now. It is not judging you. It is not punishing you. It is simply reflecting what you are broadcasting. And the question you must sit with, the question that should keep you awake tonight, not with anxiety, but with urgency, is this: What is your reflection telling you about what you truly believe? It is time to stop reading about transformation and start experiencing it. It is time to stop nodding at truth and start being rearranged by it. Because everything you have heard until this moment means nothing, absolutely nothing, if you walk away from this the same person who arrived. And that is what most people do. They consume. They feel inspired for 48 hours. They write something in a journal. They set an alarm for 5 a.m. that they silence by Wednesday. And then the old identity, patient, cunning, deeply rooted, creeps back in like water through a crack in a wall, and nothing changes. That cycle ends today, not because of what I tell you, because of what you decide to do with what you already know. Hill was not gentle about this part. He said that knowledge is only potential power. It becomes actual power only when it is organized into definite plans of action, and those plans are executed with persistence. Potential power. Think about how many people you know who are full of potential power, full of knowledge they have never applied, full of insight they have never acted on, full of dreams they have studied and discussed and visualized and never, not once, placed a deadline on. Potential without execution is just an expensive form of self-deception, and you have been deceiving yourself long enough. So here is where the violent shift begins. Not violent as in aggressive, violent as in total. Violent as in the kind of internal severance that leaves no door open for the old version of you to return through. The first thing you must do is identify the exact belief that has been governing your life from the shadows. Not the beliefs you profess, the belief your results prove, because your results are always, always, always the most honest autobiography of your subconscious mind. If your finances are contracted, your subconscious believes you are not safe with abundance. If your relationships are shallow, your subconscious believes you are not worthy of depth. If your ambitions keep stalling at the same invisible ceiling, your subconscious has a rule that says this far and no further. Find the rule, name it, say it out loud in the empty room, because a belief you have never named has power over you that a named belief does not. When you drag it into the light and look at it directly, when you say out loud, I have believed that I am not the kind of person who succeeds at this level, something shifts. The spell begins to break. Hill called this the process of autosuggestion, the deliberate, systematic reprogramming of the subconscious mind through the repeated introduction of new thought patterns charged with emotional intensity. And he was precise about how it works. It is not enough to repeat words. Your subconscious is not fooled by hollow repetition. It requires emotion. It requires the feeling of the thing, not just the thought of it. Which means you must learn to feel wealthy before you are wealthy. You must learn to feel powerful before the power is visible. You must learn to feel certain before the evidence arrives. This is the practice that separates the masters from the masses. The masses wait for evidence before they allow themselves to feel confident. The masters generate the feeling first, and then watch as the evidence organizes itself around that feeling. So here is your first mental exercise. Close your eyes if you can, and I want you to locate somewhere in your body the physical sensation of what it feels like to have already arrived, not the thought of it, the feeling of it, the way your shoulders would sit if you had already built what you are building. The way your breath would move if the fear were gone. The way you would walk into a room if you knew with absolute certainty that you were exactly where you were supposed to be, becoming exactly what you were meant to become. Find that feeling, hold it, let it spread from your chest into your limbs. Let it change your posture right now, in this moment as you listen. That feeling is not fantasy, that feeling is a signal. It is your nervous system making contact with the version of you that already exists at a higher frequency, the version that is waiting for your present self to stop apologizing and catch up. Hill said that whatever you can feel as real, Your subconscious will work to make real. So that feeling is not indulgence. That feeling is the most productive thing you can do. Now, here is the second exercise. And this one will be uncomfortable, which means it is exactly right. I want you to write down, in specific and unsparing language, the single biggest compromise you have made with your own potential. Not a list. One thing, the one place where you know, beneath all the justifications and the reasonable explanations, that you chose the smaller version of yourself because the larger version felt too dangerous, too exposed, too far from the safety of what others expected from you. Write it down, and then write beneath it these words. This compromise was made by a version of me that no longer exists. Because here is the truth about identity, that most people never grasp until it is almost too late. You are not a fixed thing. You are not the sum of your history. You are not the product of your environment or your upbringing or your failures or the opinions of people who were too limited to see what you carried. You are a decision. At every moment, you are the living expression of the most recent identity decision you have made, which means the person who settled is not you. It was a decision, and decisions can be revoked, they can be superseded, they can be burned to the ground and replaced with something so much larger, so much truer, so much more aligned with the original design you were born with, that the old decision becomes unrecognizable. Hill spent his life proving this. He came from poverty so absolute it would have justified a lifetime of limitation. He was told by circumstance, by society, by the voice of statistical probability, that men like him did not become what he became, and he looked at all of that evidence, all of that reasonable, logical, empirically supported evidence, and he chose a different story. Not because the evidence was wrong, but because he understood that evidence describes the past, and he was not building a past. He was building a future. And futures are not constrained by evidence. Futures are constrained only by the size of the decision that precedes them. So make the decision now. Not a soft decision, not a hopeful decision. Not a decision you will revisit if things don't improve in 6 months. A final decision, the kind that closes the door behind you so completely that going back is no longer a category your mind entertains. Decide that you are the kind of person who creates results. Decide that you are the kind of person whose inner world governs their outer world, not the reverse. Decide that from this moment forward, you will meet every obstacle not with a prayer for relief, but with the absolute authority of someone who knows that the obstacle exists not to stop them, but to forge them. Because that is what Hill found in every master he studied. They did not have fewer obstacles than everyone else. They had a different relationship with obstacles. Where others saw a wall, they saw a curriculum. Where others felt defeat, they felt direction. Where others asked, "Why is this happening to me?" they asked, "What is this making me capable of?" That reframe is not optimism. That reframe is power. It is the decision to extract value from everything, including the pain, including the delay, including the years that felt wasted, but were actually the exact preparation required for the level you are about to enter. Nothing was wasted. Not one day, not one failure, not one moment of darkness that drove you to your knees and made you wonder if you had what it takes. All of it was instruction, all of it was compression. All of it was the universe preparing a vessel capable of holding what is coming, but you have to be ready to receive it. And readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a decision followed by action taken before the feeling arrives. So take the action. Today. Not the perfect action, not the fully planned, completely risk-assessed, universally approved action. One move, one concrete, irreversible move in the direction of the life you have been begging for and are now, finally, demanding. Because demand without movement is just louder begging. And you are done begging. You have come far enough in this moment to know that something has shifted, Not outside of you, inside, in the place where decisions are made before the mind catches up. In the place where the old story lost its grip and something older, something truer, something that was there before the world told you who to be, began to breathe again. That is not inspiration. That is resurrection. And resurrection is not gentle. It does not ask you if you are ready. It does not wait for the perfect conditions or the aligned calendar or the moment when fear finally decides to cooperate. It arrives like dawn, absolute, unannounced, indifferent to whether the darkness was ready to leave. Napoleon Hill understood that the final frontier of human achievement is not strategy. It is not network. It is not capital or connection or the right room at the right time. The final frontier is the conversation you have with yourself in the silence after everyone else has gone to sleep. That conversation is where empires are built or buried. That conversation is where the person you are becoming either receives permission to exist or gets talked back into the familiar cage of who you used to be. And most people, most brilliant, capable, deserving people, lose that conversation every single night. Not because they are weak, because they are unarmed. They walk into the most important battlefield of their lives with no weapon, no declaration, no sacred language to counter the voice that says you are not enough. It is too late. People like you do not get to have lives like that. Today you leave armed. Today you leave with words that are not decoration. Words that are commands, words that spoken with conviction and repetition and the full emotional weight of someone who has finally decided to stop apologizing for their own potential will begin to rewrite the operating system of your subconscious mind. Hill called this the principle of the mastermind. Not the mastermind group, though that matters too. The mastermind within. The moment when every faculty of your being, your thought, your emotion, your will, your imagination, your memory, your intuition, all of it, aligns behind a single burning intention with such totality that resistance becomes structurally impossible. That is the state these words are designed to invoke. Say them now. Say them out loud if you can. Say them with your spine straight and your chest open, and your voice carrying the authority of someone who has just buried the smaller version of themselves and is standing over the grave without grief. I do not beg for what I was built to create. I demand results with the full authority of my conviction. I am not at the mercy of life. Life answers to my vision. I release the posture of waiting and I rise into the power of becoming. Say it again. Not as a wish, as a law, because that is what it is. That mantra is not poetry. It is a precise psychological instrument designed to interrupt the pattern of lack and replace it with the pattern of dominion. Every time fear whispers, you answer with that mantra. Every time the ghost of your old identity tries to reclaim its territory, you answer with that mantra. Every time the circumstances of your life try to convince you that the evidence is against you, you answer with that mantra. Until the day the mantra is no longer something you say, it is something you are. Hill documented this process in the lives of every master he studied. The words came first. The feeling followed the words. The action followed the feeling. The results followed the action. And the identity followed the results, confirming and deepening the belief that had started the entire sequence. It is a spiral, but it only moves in one direction once you choose which end to begin from. You can begin from the result and wait for it to give you permission to believe, or you can begin from the belief and watch as the result has no choice but to arrive. Every person Hill studied chose to begin from the belief. Every person still waiting for their life to change is beginning from the result. This is the entire difference. This is the whole secret compressed into a single choice. And that choice is yours right now. Not Hill's, not mine, yours. Let me tell you something about the life that is waiting for you on the other side of this decision. It is not a fantasy. It is not a reward reserved for the exceptional. It is the natural, inevitable, mathematically certain outcome of a mind that has been reprogrammed to demand instead of beg, to create instead of wait, to expand instead of contract, to command instead of plead. That life is not far from you. It is not separated from you by years of work, or mountains of sacrifice, or the mercy of people who hold power you don't yet have. It is separated from you by a single membrane, the membrane of your current belief about what is possible for you. Puncture that membrane. You have everything you need to puncture it. You have the knowledge Hill spent 20 years distilling. You have the awareness of the mechanism that has been keeping you small. You have the mantra that will rewire your subconscious one repetition at a time. And you have this moment, this exact, unrepeatable, sacred moment in which the old version of you is still fresh enough in the grave that the new version can step forward without looking back. Do not look back. There is nothing there worth retrieving. The failures were tuition. The delays were preparation. The pain was the fire that forged the instrument you are now holding, and the instrument is ready. You are ready. Not because the fear is gone. The fear may never be entirely gone, and that is not the goal. The goal is to become the kind of person who moves with absolute authority in the full presence of fear, who looks at the thing that terrifies them and walks toward it anyway. Not recklessly, deliberately, with the calm, unshakable certainty of someone who has already decided the outcome and is simply living toward it, one committed action at a time. Hill said that the starting point of all achievement is desire, not talent, not opportunity, not circumstance. Desire, burning, specific, emotionally charged desire that becomes so woven into the fabric of your identity that your entire nervous system reorganizes around its fulfillment. You came to this moment with that desire already inside you. You did not arrive here by accident. You arrived here because something in you refuses to accept the life of someone who settles. Something in you has been fighting for years to get your attention, to shake you awake, to make you see that the life you are living is not the life you were designed for. That something is your destiny knocking, and it has been knocking for a long time. Open the door, not later, not when you feel ready, not when the circumstances improve, or the fear subsides, or the path becomes clearer. Now, with the exact courage you have available in this moment, which is more than enough, which has always been more than enough, which was enough the day you were born and has been waiting for you to claim it ever since. Napoleon Hill left this world, having proven beyond any reasonable doubt that the human mind, when properly directed, when freed from the prison of limiting belief and armed with burning desire and absolute faith, is the most powerful creative force in the known universe. He proved it not with theory. He proved it with 500 lives transformed against every odd. He proved it with his own life, pulled from poverty by the force of a decision made before a single piece of evidence supported it. And he left behind a message written not in ink, but in the architecture of human possibility itself. That message is this: you were not built for average. You were not designed for defeat. You were not placed on this earth to spend your one irreplaceable life pushing a boulder uphill and wondering why the mountain never ends. You were placed here to demand, to create, to become so aligned with your purpose that the universe has no choice but to conspire in your favor. The begging is over. The waiting is done. The break you have been praying for was never going to come from outside. It was always going to come from the moment you decided, finally and completely and without reservation, that you were worth fighting for. That moment is now. And life, whether it is ready or not, is about to answer.